I haven't seen those statements.
Question number 5, the Honourable David Parker.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Attorney-General. How often has the Solicitor-General appeared in court representing the Crown in cases involving the interests of a Prime Minister during an election campaign?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Speaker, the Solicitor-General does not appear before courts on behalf of the private interests of ministers. The Solicitor-General's role involves appearing before the courts on behalf of the Crown. The Crown is constantly involved in litigation regardless of whether there's an election on. The member may in fact be referring to a case called Ambrose and the Attorney-General, which was the subject of an earlier question. It may help if I say this. The Solicitor-General became involved in that case because the Attorney-General had been named as a defendant by Mr Ambrose. The Prime Minister was represented by his own legal counsel. The proceeding was an application under the Declaratory Judgments Act, and paragraph 2 of the Statement of Claim named the Attorney-General as defendant and what they call default contradictor. Section 9A of the Constitution Act says that the Solicitor-General can perform a function conferred on the Attorney-General. The Solicitor-General in the case, sir, submitted that while the Attorney-General is not the appropriate default contradictor in applications under the Declaratory Judgment Act, in the context of this particular application, he was properly named because the relief sought if granted would have impinged on the prosecutorial discretion and prerogative powers of the Crown. And those points were noted by Her Honour when she delivered judgment some days later.
The Honourable David. Point of order has been called. The Honourable David Parker.
A very long answer, sir, but my question is...
No order. That's unnecessary under a point of order, and the member knows that. In fact, the answer, far from the member's question, if he's going to say his member's question wasn't answered, as I understand what the Minister said, he pointed out that the Solicitor-General does not appear in cases involving individual ministers. If I understand what the Attorney-General said, that the Solicitor-General appears on behalf of the Crown, and the Attorney-General went on to explain why the Solicitor-General became involved in this case because of the naming by Ambrose, I understood what the Minister said, naming the Attorney-General in the proceedings in some way. Now, that was a very full answer to the member's question, because clearly the Solicitor-General does not appear on behalf of ministers.
Speaking to the point of order, sir.
Well, hear the Honourable David Parker.
And I accept your first reprimand, sir. It's clear from the question that I'm aware that the Solicitor-General represents the Crown. It says, how often does the Solicitor-General appear in court representing the Crown? That's in the question, sir. But then it goes on to say, in cases involving the interests of a Prime Minister during an election campaign, and that hasn't been answered, sir.
Prime Minister, I tried to...
Insofar as the member is saying his question is simply asking how often has the Solicitor-General appeared in court representing the Crown involving matters relating to an election campaign, I accept that maybe that point hasn't been answered clearly by the... If the Attorney-General wished to make any further comment on that, that would be helpful.
Well, I referred to Ambrose and the Attorney-General, which was such a case.
The Honourable David Parker.
Was the point of principle that was so important to justify the use of power of the state against the media during an election, including the execution of search warrants and the Solicitor-General appearing in a court case, what was that point of principle that is now so unimportant that Mr Key's dropping his complaint?
The point of principle was elaborated by the Solicitor-General in his submission to the court, and it was a multifaceted answer. I choose to focus on what the Solicitor-General submitted, and that is that while the Attorney-General was not the appropriate default contradictor in general applications under the Declaratory Judgments Act, in the context of this application he was properly named because of the relief sought, if granted, would have impinged on the prosecutorial discretion and prerogative powers of the Crown. That's the important point of principle.
The Honourable David Parker.
Will the Solicitor-General intervene on behalf of any other New Zealander who considers their privacy breached or is this special privilege reserved for National Party Prime Ministers campaigning in Epsom?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson.
Well, I'll avoid the temptation to comment on the special privilege point. The Solicitor-General has intervened and will continue to intervene in matters that affect the public interest. And it is not possible to outline all the circumstances in the future where those conditions may apply, but that is the sole criterion in determining when there is a Solicitor-General intervention.
The Honourable David Parker.
What advice has he received from the Solicitor-General about lessons learned from the public release of last night's taped conversation between President Obama and President Medvedev? And what was it about John Key and John Banks' conversation in Epsom that made it more sensitive than a conversation between the presidents of the United States and Russia?
The Honourable Chris Finlayson, if he has any responsibility.
For answering questions on behalf of Mr Key as leader of the National Party, nor Mr Banks as the candidate for Epsom, nor Mr Obama, nor the President of Russia.
Question number 6. Point of order. A point of order has been called. The Honourable Order. The Honourable Gerry Brownlee.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table a statement by Assistant Commissioner Malcolm Burgess in which he makes it clear that Mr Ambrose's actions were unlawful.
Leavers. This is a. But is this just a media statement?
This is a media release by the press, by the police. Clearly not read by the opposition.
No, order. That's sufficient. No, we don't table media releases. Question number 6, Tim McIndoe.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the